everyone, Dawn here from the International College of Energy Healing, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the psychic ability known as clairsentience and how to develop and strengthen it. Now, clairsentience literally means clear feeling, and it's one of the most familiar psychic senses, and it's relatively easy to access and develop. If you've ever walked into a situation with a sense of foreboding or excitement, then you are already accessing your clairsentient abilities. People with clairsentience as their predominant psychic sense will generally receive other people's stuff. So this can be emotions as well as physical feelings. And in turn, this can affect their own outlook or feelings as well. And if this is the case with you, it's very important to practice daily psychic protection. If you're having an emotional day that isn't your norm, don't ask yourself, what's wrong with me today? Ask yourself, who is wrong with me today? So here are some of the signs that you might be clairsentient. So do you feel drained after being in a large group of people? Now, I'm not talking about being shy. I mean, you physically feel exhausted after being in the presence of a large amount of people for an extended amount of time. And this is because clairsentients feel energy and can get an energy overload from all of those people. Think about the emotions, good and bad, that are swirling around in the room and you're sucking them all in. This is something that I struggled with for years and to some extent still struggle with it now. I do find it very difficult to go into places with large amounts of people in, so malls, large supermarkets, exhibitions, concerts, etc. can all leave me totally drained and feeling exhausted. Do you have good instincts about people and situations? Because clairsentient people can read other people accurately. You know when somebody is being honest and when they're not. You know if they're a wolf in sheep's clothing or if they are the lamb that they're purporting to be. You can size people, places and situations up pretty quickly. Because of this, I bet you find your friends asking about the people in their lives and if they're good, as good as they think they are or they want them to be, or if a new job is going to be good for them. This happens to me all of the time. I can feel when something or someone isn't right. This is such a helpful psychic sense, but we have to listen to it. And I must admit, there are times when I haven't listened to my spidey senses and the inevitables happened. Can you sense energy in the room? So if you're the type of person that knows if there's been a row just before you've walked into a room, you're using your clairsentient abilities. You can feel it when it's heavy or it's full of love. Again, a really helpful sense to have. You can feel the energy of the room and act accordingly. Now, I use this a lot in paranormal investigations. It's good to feel out the location and locate the areas of activity. And it doesn't always mean that there's an active spirit, because if a place feels heavy, it could be the energy of the living people residing there. But it's a really good place to start if you can understand a location from an energetic perspective. Do you know if a friend or loved one is hurting or even lying? Even if they're not in the same location as you. As a clairsentient person, you are emotion detectors. No matter what people are saying, you know the truth. And this is a blessing and it's a curse. A blessing because you can be the one to check in with your loved one or your friend, make sure that they're okay. You can take action to support and to help them to feel better, even if they're smiling. And a curse, well, because you know if somebody's lying to you. Now, sometimes it's a good thing, especially when you know your kids are not where they say they are. It's good to have that sense. But if it's a friend who isn't being truthful, that can really suck. So be aware of who you're lying to, and if they're clairsentient, they will know. Clairsentient people struggle watching the news or sad movies. And that's because you connect so profoundly with the bad news or sad news story, it can make you cry or feel it in your body like a physical pain. Distressing stories are to be avoided if at all possible, because you get totally connected to a sad movie or a story like it's happening to you. So does that sound familiar? To be honest, I tend to shy away from bad news and sad movies, although I do love a good true crime thriller or murder mystery. I like to go into psychic detective mode to practice my skill. Do you feel emotions randomly and seemingly without cause, and you know that they're not yours? And even, do you physically feel the pain of others? A clairsentient person can be bobbing along all happy, and then wham, they get hit with a wave of emotion that knocks them off their feet. It feels out of the blue and it feels random. Or you can start feeling the physical pain in your body and you know it's not yours. Well, chances are they're not, and you're picking up somebody else's with your clairsentient abilities. Now, this took me a few years to understand what was happening to me, and lots of conversations with my psychic mentors. They knew before me that I was clairsentient. What helped me a lot was to become very present in my body. I need to know how I am emotionally, mentally, and physically at any one time to be able to know when I'm feeling something that really isn't mine. And if I'm not sure, I ask. You'll find that this is a great practice, but it does mean that you have to be present in your body to know when something is affecting it. Are you sensitive to your environment? Do subtle changes in your room or your workplace dramatically impact you? Does clutter in your space feel like clutter in your mind and impact the way you work? Clairsentient people are very connected to their environments because environments have their own energetic imprints. Also, other sensitivities can be prevalent in clairsentient people, like chemicals, food, earth, solar and moon energy, and electromagnetic frequency. Again, knowing your natural state of wellness will help you to identify what in the environment is throwing you off kilter. And how about shopping in a second-hand or antique store? Do you find that difficult? Objects do hold energy, so you will have the energies, the history and the emotions of the many people that have owned those items or used them or interacted them in some way. You would think that after my many years of working as a clairvoyant medium, I would know better. But to this day, I can still let myself be overcome in places like that. And finally, are people always telling you that you're just too sensitive? And probably you've heard this your whole life and maybe even feel like it is a flaw in your personality. It isn't. So if you related to some or even all of those, I think it's pretty clear-cut that you are clairsentient. But don't worry, being clairsentient isn't a negative thing, although sometimes it does feel like it. It is such a helpful psychic sense that can get us out of trouble if we use it wisely. And see, I believe that we're born with psychic senses to help us with our human experience. We live in a vibrational universe, so having a way to explore beyond our five senses is actually pretty cool. However, we need to find a way to use them for our benefit and not let them control us. There are a couple of previous videos that I have on the channel that I think you'll find helpful. I have one on how to take control of being an empath and one how to protect your energy, as well as my top 10 psychic protection crystals, and I will link them below in the description. I would highly recommend the energy protection video, as this literally is a survival guide for the clairsentient person, and it will help you to thrive in this energetic world. I really think it is one of the most important things because as a clairsentient person, you probably avoid people, places and things that overwhelm you. What psychic protection does is to allow you to interact successfully in the world without fear or avoidance. Having these practices in place helps you to be present with people and places. Now, it's not 100% fixed, and even to this day, there are times when my protection isn't enough and I feel the energy so strongly, it impacts me. However, I would say 99.9% of the time it works, and I'm thankful for that, because this allows me to explore and use my clairsentient abilities for my benefit and not to be fearful of them. So, how do you learn to control it? Well, I believe in order to control our psychic abilities, we need to understand them, we need to embrace them, and we need to strengthen them. So I'm going to share an activity you can do to strengthen clairsentient abilities and help you to understand how you receive clairsentient information and make sense of it. When I'm working with psychic development students, one of the activities that I ask them to practice is something called psychometry. If you are naturally clairsentient, it's something that you're already doing as you explore your environment. Clairsentient people need to touch and feel things physically, as their hands are wonderful receptors of energy. This also makes clairsentient great at psychometry. Now, psychometry is the art of reading the impressions you get from objects through the process of touch. Psychometry as a term was coined by Joseph R. Buchanan in 1842 from the Greek word psyche, meaning soul, and metron, meaning measure. Buchanan, an American professor of physiology, was one of the first people to experiment with psychometry. Using his students as subjects, he placed various drugs in glass vials and then asked the students to identify the drugs merely by holding the vials. And their success rate was more than chance. And he published the results in his book, Journal of Man. To explain the phenomenon, Buchanan theorized that all objects have souls that retain a memory. Intrigued and inspired by Buchanan's work, American professor of geology William F. Denton conducted experiments to see if psychometry would work with his geological specimens. In 1854, he enlisted the help of his sister Anne Denton Cridge. The professor wrapped his specimens in cloth so Anne couldn't see even what type they were. She then placed the wrap package to her forehead and was able to accurately describe the specimens through vivid mental images. Now also, from 1919 to 1922, a German doctor and a psychical researcher discovered psychometry abilities in one of his patients. So Maria raised the zeroid while holding an object. She could place herself in a trance and be able to state facts about the object's past and present, describing sights, sounds, smells, and other feelings about the object's experience in the world. Now, the doctor's theory was that a psychometrist could tune into the experiential vibrations condensed in the object. So I first heard of and practiced psychometry early on in my psychic development. I'd just been opened up by spirit. Long story, for a video at another time. But I'd found a psychic development circle in a local independent spiritualist church, and it was my first visit. After a short opening up, prayer, and a much longer meditation, we were asked to find a partner. The instructions were to give our partner an item of ours for them to read. I was so nervous as I had never done anything like this before, and I wanted to be good at it. We were given no instructions. My partner had been sitting in circle there for about a year, so was very knowledgeable and practiced, and I was a total rookie. She gave me a ring to hold. Once I got over my fear and started to breathe again, yes, I was holding my breath like a scared child. What I found happening to me was that I opened myself up to the object that I was holding and feeling emotions in the body that weren't there before. So I felt a strong sense of love and then relief. Oh yes, that was just my emotion, as I was so relieved that I was actually picking something up, but the love was real. So yes, strong love. So I said it out loud and she nodded and smiled encouragingly. I also found that I was seeing images in my head, and it was like my clairsentient abilities were a bridge to the information that I could also interpret visually. So I remember seeing yellow flowers, a chair, and books in a bookcase. And this was verified as a place that she would sit to read often, and had actually been sitting there reading before she came to circle. She asked me to go further back with a ring, and I saw two older women. Again, I felt love wash over me. Allowing myself to open up further, I felt pain in my back. This was a physical pain and uncomfortable to sit with. At that point, I didn't know if it wasn't my pain or one of the women's that I'd seen. Everything that I was getting, I was sharing verbally with my partner, and she was verifying what she could and letting me know what she couldn't. I worked for about 20 minutes and was able to pick up lots of accurate information. And the two women, well, mother and grandmother, as this was a ring that had been passed down to her from those lovely ladies, one of whom suffered with a bad back for most of her adult life due to one leg being shorter than the other following an accident as a child. So practicing psychometry is really easy to do by yourself or with a group of friends. So you ask a friend for an object, a watch, a ring, cigarette lighter, wallet, whatever, for you to read it. But it should be something that they're in regular contact with and they know the history of it. Believe you me, there is nothing more frustrating than being given an object to read, and when you're getting information, the person is saying, well, I don't know much about it. So at this stage, it is super helpful to get confirmation as it builds your confidence and it helps you to be more accurate in your readings. At first, you might want to find somewhere quiet and peaceful if possible. When you're starting out, you might find it difficult to tune in somewhere where there are lots of distractions. If the object is small enough, place it in the palm of your hand and then place your other hand on top. Now, many people suggest using your non-dominant hand, as this is the receiver with the dominant hand being the giver. So I'm right-handed, which would mean that I would hold the object in my left hand. What I will say is that in my experience of psychometry, it doesn't really matter which hand I hold it in. They both seem to work equally well. So I'd advise you to try either hand and see what works best for you. So sit quietly for a few moments and try to relax. I try to explain this step as taking a step back from the world. It's a bit similar to meditating, and allow yourself to feel anything you get. Remember, this could be emotions and physical feelings. Also, don't discount the other ways that psychic information comes to you. So images might appear in your mind, you might hear something, or you just might know some information. If you're working alone, I'd suggest that you write down as much as you can. If you're working with a partner or friend, then verbalize what you're getting. Now, don't try to interpret what you get. And what I mean by that is just say what you see. I'll give you an example of what I mean. So I'd been asked to perform psychometry on an item in an envelope. I didn't know what it was in the envelope. And as I tuned into it, I saw a very famous snooker player. I recognized him from the TV as he'd become a TV personality. So instead of saying the name of who I started to talk about somebody's connected to the object who played snooker. The person shook their head. Nope, nobody played snooker. Well, they must have watched snooker then, I said. Again, nope, they didn't watch snooker. Now, I was starting to flounder as I knew what I was seeing, but my confidence was getting low, and it was like a wall that was coming up. Nothing was coming to me now. So out of desperation, I said, well, somebody must be connected to snooker, as I'm seeing Steve Davis, a famous UK snooker player. Now, I kid you not, the colour drained out of this man's face as he recalled a story from his childhood. They would talk about it a lot at family gatherings. They'd met Steve Davis. Nobody liked snooker, but the memory of this was so strong and kept alive through the recounting of it, I'd managed to pick it up. Thankfully, that helped me to get my confidence back and more information started to flow. So what was in the envelope, you might ask? Well, it was a lock of hair from my client's father who'd passed. I was able to use this as a bridge to connect to him and bring forward so many wonderful things. Now, that may have been one of the strangest objects that I've read, and I've read locks of hair a couple of times now with different clients. It's amazing how much energy is retained in the hair. So the lesson for me in all of this is to say what you see and not try and interpret it. The other important thing to remember is not to discount anything, whether it's a feeling, emotion, image, thought, whatever. Whatever it is, say it or write it down. It may not seem important to you, but it might be really significant to the owner of the object. Now, most people, when trying this for the first time, may get everyday information, but are often surprised how relevant they can be to the owner of the object that they're reading. So, for example, you may see or get the feeling from something as simple as a kettle. And on mentioning this, you might be told that their kettle decided to pack up and stop working today. So the point here is just to make sure you say everything that you see. You might sense feelings about that person too, so mention them as well. You may find much of what you describe can't be placed, and don't expect miracles. Accept you'll be wrong and be prepared to keep trying. It is interesting to experiment with very old objects. Now remember, these might have been owned and handled by lots of people. So be aware, as this might be the reason why what you're picking up can't be understood by the person who currently owns it. And maybe you can hold an own coin or book or an artifact and get impressions from holding these old objects. And size doesn't matter in psychometry, so you can read a small or a large object. I've psychometrized some weird and wonderful things from fireplace mantles, gravestones, a silver platter, and even an old baptizing font in an ancient church. It really doesn't matter, as everything holds energy. Now, if you're sitting in circle with a group of people, all bring an object, and each person passes their object to the person, let's say, on their left, and everybody reads what they have. Then the objects get passed left again until everybody has read everybody else's object, and your object is back with you. Now, I highly recommend that you're writing down what you get as you read each object and then sharing it collectively at the end. You'll be surprised how consistent the information will be, and of course, the owner of the object will be able to say what they can confirm and what they cannot. And finally, do not confuse the process of psychometry with mediumship. Although one might bring about the other, and in most cases you're using your psychic skills, you're picking up psychic information, not medium ones. So psychometry is a great way to learn and to control and to make friends with your clairsentient abilities. And if your preference is clairsentience, then utilize this in your daily life. Tune into feelings and emotions of the people close to you, especially if you do readings for others. Use it to help you make important decisions by asking yourself how you feel about the decision. Observe your own reaction to people, places, and choices in your life, and allow your intuitive ability to guide you. I really do believe that we have these abilities to help us to navigate our lives successfully, and we should be embracing them. Now, I hope that you've enjoyed the video, and as always, I ask that you subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. So hit the bell so that you're notified when a new video is uploaded. I try to load at least one video a week on a range of topics. So finally, enjoy your day, and ta-ta for now.